What's going on? This is Dwayne here with I Feel You, the podcast. This is the very first recorded edition of I Feel You. And today's special guest, we have George Seaborough. He is the CEO of Chatham County Citizens Advocacy. He is a longtime friend. I've known George, for about, 15, 20 plus years now. We've endured a lot growing up or whatever. Might as well say we grew up together. We've endured a lot. We've evolved a lot in our growth. And I want to bring George on because he is a nonprofit. I would say a nonprofit guru or whatever. He has been around. He's worked with several organizations in his career, and just going to start it off, and I'm going to let George introduce himself and explain his role with Chatham County Citizens Advocacy. Go ahead, George.
Well, yeah, thank you. First, I would like to start off by saying that it's great to be the first. It's not often that we have the opportunities to be the first on someone embarking on a new journey. And Dwayne, I really do appreciate you giving me the call and giving me the invitation and the offer to tell a little bit about myself and also about Chatham-Savannah Citizen Advocacy. So as Dwayne mentioned, Dwayne and I have known each other for 20 plus years. I actually was just with a friend that we have in common named Summer, and we just talked about how her oldest son is now 21 years old, and that's when we all used to work at the same restaurant 20 something years ago. So I appreciate the 20-year-old friendship. And then a little bit about Citizen Advocacy is that we're a nonprofit here in Savannah. We have been around for 45 years, started back in 1978. But the bigger concept, the bigger idea of Citizen Advocacy was created by a guy named Wolf Wolfingsberger. And Wolf basically was a man that survived the Holocaust back in Germany. And when he came over to the States, he always remembered that before they came for any of the Jewish people, they came for people with disabilities first. And those were the first people that were put inside gas chambers. And while Hitler was doing that, he said that not only was he doing Germany a favor by getting rid of useless eaters or consumers, but he was also doing the people themselves a favor because their life didn't have any meaning and value. And so that always stuck with Wolf. And so when he came to the States, he went into the field of disabilities and came up with an idea called normalization, which then changed to social role valorization. And that basically says that every society and community have people that they devalue. And the way that you help a person that's devalue have value is by connecting them with a value person in the community. And that gave birth to the idea of citizen advocacy. And that's what I do. I look for people with disabilities that need someone to be connected to help them have a bigger community life and presence. So the way that work would look is I actively go out looking for people. So I go to nursing homes, group homes, jails, prisons, homeless camps, and I'm looking for people with disabilities that don't have family, or if they have family, their family is not always the best family in their lives, or either it's a situation where they have a loving family and the family just don't know what to do. And those are the people that I find advocates for.
Okay. Now, when you say you find advocates for those persons with disabilities, what exactly is an advocate, and what is the role of an advocate in a disabled person's life, in that particular disabled person's life?
And so it really depends on. So the person I find an advocate for, we tend to call that person the protege, and it really depends on what's going on in the protege's life. So every relationship is different. Right now, I support 97 matches, and out of the 97 matches, each one of those matches are different. So some people have done everything from come in and been a person's friend to be a person's spokesperson that's showing up every day at the Board of Education and fussing about segregated and isolated classrooms, to being what's called a representative paid. Most people that I find advocates for, they live off $840 a month. That's an SSI disability payment. And to have somebody come in and help you figure out how to pay your monthly bills with $800 is a talent that some advocates have chosen to use to help their protege just figure out month to month kind of life. There are organizations in town that would provide a representative paid service. Here we have the Equal Opportunity Authority. They would come in as a person representative paid, but they charge $55 a month. And so if you only have $800 and someone's charging you $50 a month to pay your bills, that's pulling you kind of in a hole. So to have somebody volunteering to do it is always a great thing. We've had people, advocates, come in and adopt children in the past. Um, Advocates have came in and helped people do everything from be what we would call a medical guardian, that's being at the bedside with someone and helping them figure out medical care, to opportunity makers, where they're coming in and they're helping a person think about college. They never thought about college before. They're coming in and helping a person find a job. And so it really depends on the person that the advocate is getting to know.
Okay. Now, we were talking about advocates and them being called proteges. Now, if you are become an advocate with Citizens Advocacy, is this like how long is the role? Is this for a year or two, or is this 5 or 10 years?
No.
What capacity?
So there's a lot to that one question. Typically, when we think about people with disabilities, or just in general, people that are devalued in our community, we see that there's a lot of programs that are created to connect people to, and programs usually come with a time frame. Citizen Advocacy do not see itself as a program. What I do, I connect two people together, and it tends to be a long-lasting relationship. And so right now we have 97 matches. Out of 97 matches, 50 of them been together for 5 years or more. 28 of them been together for 10 years or more. And our oldest relationship goes back to 1980. And so when people jail, they really do jail. And it's people business. It's not a program, but it's more so people. Um, with that being said, sometimes people don't jail. But the goal is that on the front end, we do a lot of work to make sure that we're matching the best two people together.
Okay. Now you mentioned in some instances, some relationships they don't jail. In those particular situations, what happens when that occurs?
Well, it really, once again, every relationship and every situation is different. For example, there's there's a young woman. I would not say that they didn't jail, but she was matched with a young man that she, in the middle of COVID, she brought the young man home with. He was in the hospital because of different reasons, and so she first got to meet him and said, well, the hospital was about to put him out, and he would either going to have to go live at Salvation Army or inside of a homeless camp. He said no. She said no, I can't do that. He's going to come home with me, because that's the right thing to do. And so a great relationship, to the fact that not only did she help him not become homeless, but at the same time, when his family home, that she really helped him keep his family home. Now, with that being said, 5 years down the road, they probably don't talk to each other that much, because the advocate was trying to encourage the protege to sell the house and go get a condo, because she just thought that was the best thing to do. And the protege disagreed with that, and he had every right to do so. But what we see is that these are real relationships. Any relationship in life where people come together and they gel, sometimes people just don't always come together. People disagree. There's another great story about an advocate and a protege that have been matched now for 23 years.
Wow.
And when they first met, the protege was sleeping on the floor, pregnant at the time, across the street from Savannah High in one of the trailers. And when you mentioned growing old together, they literally grew up together. And when they first met, the advocate and the protege was first time moms, and she helped her figure out motherhood. And sometimes the protege did not have the boyfriend that the advocate agreed with. So and when the advocate would share her feelings about that, the protege hung the phone up on her. So we're talking about real relationships, real people that go through real things.
Wow, wow. So from what I'm gathering from this is once a match is made, I guess the protege and the advocate, they form real relationships, real bonds. It's sort of kind of like they become family, so to speak. And how has how have you seen in your experience, or in your experience with working with citizens advocacy, how have you seen this change? I guess the proteges or whatever.
Well, I would say, in my opinion, so I've been doing citizen advocacy for 9 years. What I would say that I've seen is that it's not, people tend, once again, just because of the way that we're programmed in society and community now, we always think that we need this program or this special project to help people, and people with disabilities or people that are homeless. We need this program to do so. What I comment here from advocates is that advocates would say that they got more out of the relationship than they thought their protege was getting. But what I will also hear from advocates was that just by being connected and in a relationship with someone that they would not had the opportunity to commonly meet unless the invitation was given for them to connect and meet with someone new, is that it changed their lives. And the third part, which I do hear often, just because we've been around for 45 years, is that citizen advocacy not only had a profound impact on the individual advocate, but a lot of times advocates have the opportunity, their children have the opportunity to grow up and meet the person that they're matched with. And they would say that it also had an impact on the advocate themselves, but also on their family and their children.
Gotcha,
Now,
gotcha.
for the protege side, um, I often find advocates for people that are really living hard lives. I've seen advocates come in and literally save a person's life by standing with them at the bedside.
Right.
Um, there was a mom that, once again, she was homeless, sleeping on a park bench with her 2-year daughter, and because she was connected with an advocate, the advocate helped her get her own house, and she has been living in her own house now for the last 3 years. And now the advocate is helping her navigate motherhood, with her daughter being in kindergarten and a whole bunch of other stuff. But if the advocate was not in place, defects probably would have been involved, and the mom wouldn't have the opportunity to be mom. And so, but even in that story, the advocate would say that her life is richer because she is connected to the person that she got to know, and she would say that the mom and the daughter is part of their family.
Wow. So I'm gathering. Well, from what I'm hearing, is citizen advocacy is doing great work. And is this nationwide, or is this just local to Savannah or Georgia, or how big is citizens advocacy?
Well, yeah. So when the citizen advocacy originally started back in the late 70s, you had over 400 programs throughout the world. You still now have programs, but what happened during the 80s and the Reagan administration, when government started pulling back support for nonprofits, you had a lot of the programs in other states kind of fold. One of the things that we saw in Georgia was that our Georgia state legislators have chosen to support citizen advocacy for out of 45 years, for 44 to 45 years.
Wow.
So we still have a citizen advocacy presence in 5 cities in the state of Georgia. There are still citizen advocacy programs within Nebraska, Canada, New York, Massachusetts, Australia, New Zealand, and Ireland. And so there's still a network of citizen advocacy programs out there.
Gotcha, gotcha. All right, now I want to get a little bit more into you. Like I said, I've known you for 20 plus years, and I've worked 50 million jobs. I know, you've worked a plethora of jobs growing up. What uh, those jobs that you've had in the past? I know you work with SEIU. That's like a organization group with a political organizational group or whatever. What skills or working those various jobs that you've had in the past? How do you feel those jobs have led you to this particular role as CEO of the Chatham Savannah Citizens Advocacy? As far as like the skills that you've learned along the way, how do you feel that has helped you?
Well, yeah. So I think for me, the first thing would be that I had the opportunity to go to Savannah State University. Uh, So Dwayne, when you and I met, I was working at Garfield's, and I do think that it's a wonderful skill set of something about working inside of the hospitality industry where you learn how to just be with people, which I think is very important. But I think also the fact that I had the opportunity to go to Savannah State and I participated in something called Model United Nations, and from Model United Nations, we used to participate in the Harvard World MUN competition, and that gave me the opportunity to go to England, China, Taiwan, and Scotland. And during that time period, we competed with Harvard, with Edinburgh, with some of the top schools in the country, and top schools in the world, and always brought back home our awards from our the level of how we competed. And I mention that because I think by just being and having that experience, it gave me exposure to be willing to have conversations with people who do not look like me, and to also be willing just to be comfortable inside of a big room. The second experience, as you mentioned, I worked for an organization called Service Employee International Union, and what SEIU is that it's a union where they organize workers. And the reason and why I got a job was because my dad was a CNA, and after I graduated, he gave me a call and he was telling me about how he got fired and mistreated at work. And I was really calling SEIU to ask them to come to Savannah and organize a union. And they said, look, we're not coming to South Georgia to form a union, but do you want a job? And that's how I got hired. And one of the things that I learned from working with SEIU was that we organized nursing home workers. And so it taught me how to get into the front door of a nursing home. And one of the things that from working that job that I learned was that yes, there are hospital administrators and charge nurses and everyone else, but some of the most important people inside of the building would be the janitor, it would be the secretary, it would be the receptionist. These are the people who really hold the keys to the door. And the same way that we show and hold respect for the people on top of the list, we need to have respect for everyone, even the person that's sweeping the floor. Uh, and then later in life, and one of the ways that I got hired for working at Citizen Advocacy was that I ran for office. My wife is an occupational therapist, used to be a special education teacher, and we used to often have conversations about how people with disabilities are being treated in the school system, and we have to do something better. And so when I ran for school board, that was one of the things that I talked about was that how we had to do things better for people with disabilities. And after I lost the race, I got a call from a former boss that I had that when I worked at Savannah State that told me that I should apply for citizen advocacy. But I think for me, it has always been uh, I have always been looking for different ways to serve my community, and citizen advocacy has given me the outlet and the way to better serve my community.
All right, all right. I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. And so, what I think in talking in private or whatever, you were talking about the Chatham-Savannah Citizens Advocacy and what role it plays in the city of Savannah and surrounding areas and communities down there. Uh, and could you let the audience know or give them some facts about your particular chapter or branch of the citizens advocacy as far as like I know you said you made 97 matches or whatever, or your group has made 97 matches, like, but are they the biggest or the largest organization, funding, how was your particular
Well, what I would say is that every citizen advocacy program is unique to their community.
right,
Part of citizen advocacy is designed where we look for people in the center of the community, and those are the people that we ask to be advocates. For example, uh, baked presidents are the people who are advocates for people here. We recently recruited the chief operating officer for the city of Savannah that's an advocate. We ask people who are considered busy people to step in the lives of everyday people who need someone to stand with them throughout the day, throughout life. Um, so because of that, I really do believe that Savannah citizen advocacy is the heart of Savannah.
Right.
Um, it's really to the point. I gave a conversation or a talk not too long ago, where um, I mentioned that right now there are people in Savannah that are connecting with people that are living on thin ice, and they are advocating for them. There's a group of Savannahans that met a young man with a disability and helped to get him out of the hospital, and outside of helping him get in the hospital, help him move inside of his own apartment. And all of that was done without me making the match. It was that Savannahans saw citizen advocacy. They knew people that were advocates. And they said, if
Right.
my friend can be an advocate for somebody, I should be doing this. And that's really the invisible hand of intentionality that citizen advocacy has here in Savannah. The other unique thing I think about citizen advocacy, just in the sphere of nonprofits, I talk to other executive directors all the time, and citizen advocacy is probably the only uh, nonprofit board in Savannah where board members they really they continuously ask to serve on our board. And so we have term limits where people have to roll off and after 6 years. And when people roll off, they want to come back on. And that's
Right.
just the love that Savannahans have for this organization. When you talk about fundraising, I don't know if we have the biggest budget, but intentionality is something that's big that play in the world of citizen advocacy. So intentionally, we would never be a big nonprofit. Recently here, United Way raised $10 million. We would never go after to raise $10 million. But what we would do instead is think about how do we keep our staff at a level that can find and make matches where it can have a ripple effect throughout the city of Savannah. And that's I believe for 45 years that's what we have done.
Gotcha. 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 All right. Now, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for coming on, man, and thank you for being my first guest for I Feel You, the podcast. I truly appreciate it. And if someone out there who's listening or whatever is interested in becoming an advocate or interested in learning more about citizens advocacy, uh, what do you have a website? Like, I guess, is there a national website and then I guess a website for the Savannah for Chatham County, Savannah?
Well, so one, you guys are in Atlanta, so there's the Atlanta DeKalb Citizen Advocacy Program, and I would say all you guys to really do is just Google Citizen Advocacy in Atlanta, Google Citizen Advocacy in Savannah, and all of the information will pop up. But with
Okay.
that also being said, you can't just sign up and volunteer for citizen advocacy. The
Right.
way that we find advocates is through a trust network. So typically, if somebody calls me and say, "Hey, I want to be an advocate," we might do coffee, but it doesn't mean that you're going to become an advocate. The
Right.
way that we find advocates is through having communications with people in our cities, and really having thinking about who we're looking for, and we really try to identify advocates of people that we that's vetted. And then when I say vetted, they're vetted by the community. A great example would be a retired judge here in town is Judge Abbott. And Judge Abbott, I recently had a conversation with her because I was looking for an advocate with a young man, for a young man, and she sat down and we talked about who the young man was that I was looking for an advocate for, and some of the gifts and talents that the protege has, and she pulled out her phone and she thought about the people that she saw as very valuable, that she saw as quote unquote a good person, and that's how
Right.
we find advocates. But what we also do, we do have we will go out and have coffee with people and have lunch with people and have
Right.
conversations with them about what citizen advocacy is. Once again, all the person just have to go to our website is savannahcitizenadvocacy.org, or they could once again just do a quick Google search, citizen advocacy in Savannah, and there's a ton of information that will pop up.
Okay. Well, thank you once again, George, for being for making history. You're the first guest for I Feel You, the podcast. Do you have any closing remarks? Oh, well, any closing remarks? Anything you'd like to say?
Um, yeah. First, I would say thank you for having me. I appreciate being the first guest. What I would also say, and also encourage people. One of the things that there's two words that's going around the world right now. The first one is loneliness. There's a ton of research being done on the concept of being lonely and how people are isolated, segregated, and separated from just one another in community, whether they have a disability or not. That's just something that's study upon studies being done about it, and even more so. When you look at this society from a generational perspective, younger people 35 and younger, they're trying to figure out how to build and develop community again.
Right.
So loneliness is the first word. The second word is belonging.
Right.
There's companies that are paying strategists to come in and help with conversations about how do you help people feel like they belong to the culture, the workforce, and how do you get more productivity from people by helping them feel like they belong. What I would say is that with those two words, loneliness and belonging, I think if we just remember how to be neighbors, if we go outside and knock on the door and say hey to our neighbor, um, if we think about different ways to help people feel like they're part of the community, we really can change the world a little bit more every day. So as the listeners think about their day and and tomorrow, I would encourage them, uh, grow something in their backyard where they could take their neighbor some peaches, or yesterday I gave my neighbor some bell peppers and rosemary, just so I could be a good neighbor. And by doing that, you can help your neighbor probably feel a little less lonely. And I would say that you can also help them feel like they belong to a community.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Once again, everyone, this is I Feel You, the podcast. This is Dwayne Washington, your host, with our very first guest, Mr. George Seaborough. And we're signing off, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
All right, thanks.